Good afternoon, it's Dave at All Things Important Reviews. Please smash that like button, please smash the subscribe button for more awesome watch content. I've got a comparison video today against one of my favourite Casio G-Shocks, the GST-W330D, which is a multi-band, tough solar, full bracelet, stainless steel, G-Steel model watch from Casio. And on the right we have a later model, the GST-B300, which is a 2020 model, which this one comes on a resin band, 200 meter water resist, but this one has the Bluetooth but does not have radio control time. It does through the phone, obviously. 1 second. Yeah. And you can actually get both models on a plastic strap, and you can get both models on a bracelet. I've obviously got this one on a resin band. A fairer comparison would have been on the bracelet, and I will probably pick up the bracelet one anyway just to see how it feels. They're both analog digital watches, so you have, you know, an LED sub-dial, and on this one you have multiple. On the 330D you have multiple sub-dials actually. So in terms of size, surprisingly they're both very similar. Both watches are big watches. They both measure around 49 millimeters overall diameter of the case. I think the one on the B300, the one on the right, was a little tiny bit smaller than that. The lug to lug on, well, actually the end link to end link on the one on my left is actually like 55, 56 mil, whereas it's a bit more complicated to actually measure on the B300, because obviously you've got this like plastic band. It looks like it's got female end links, but the plastic band here, you know, you'd have to measure it from there to there, which it's not actually that different. It's still a very big watch, but the BS300, the GST-B300, sorry, on the right, it does, the case design is more kind of sharper here in terms of it's rounded and there's less protruding case here, whereas obviously this one does have a bigger supporting case. So my guess is overall, bracelet to bracelet, the B300 on the right would be slightly, very, very slightly lighter, super slightly, like a few gram if that, which for all intents and purposes would be essentially nothing. The fit, so the fit and feel of both watches, because they're on different straps, they do feel very differently. I'm a bracelet kind of person in general. I used to be a strap person, but now I am fully a bracelet person, so I prefer the feel of this one because of the bracelet, but that's an unfair comparison because you can obviously just buy the bracelet for this one, or buy the model of it on a bracelet. So for sizing wise, or as well, in terms of the thickness, the thickness of this one is actually, it's like 15.6 if you measure to the 15.5 mil if you measure to the bezel, but the actual crystal is a couple of mil in set, whereas with this one it measures about 15.3 mil with a B300, but the bezel is flush with the crystal. So in reality this one may be technically thicker if you go to the bezel. If you go to the crystal, this is thicker. So this is actually I would argue, a thicker watch than this one, because the bezel is proud by a couple of mil on this one, but it is not on the B300. So, but in reality, they both feel very similar in terms of the thickness, because they're both very thick watches. And I personally do not like super thick watches on bands. I think they're better on a bracelet. Can you see how thick that watch is? It's a fat watch. Which is why probably you should pick up the latest model, which is the B400 line, which they do on bracelets, on a band, etc., which is super thin. It's not super thin, but it's thin from Gshock. It's like 12.9 mil, which is the thinnest Gshock they've done for years. So yeah, there's that to consider. So for thickness, they're both thick watches. Right, let's talk about dials. The dials, I like both dials. They both look different, obviously. I would say this one looks more sporty. It looks more cluttered and more sporty. I think this one have got it just right. This one is more versatile. The legibility is superior on the GST on the you know, the 330D. The legibility is definitely better on this one, because they've put white indices, very crisp white indices, against like a dark grey sunburst, which looks absolutely beautiful. Whereas on this one, I can't see any sunburst, and the indices are not super white. Only the outer ring is white, and there actually is no neo bright on the outer ring, whereas on this one, this has a beautiful loom, a neo bright loom on the outer ring and the hands, whereas on the B300, unfortunately only the hands are loomed, which is a definite negative. This one looks absolutely stunning at night. I've got a picture of it in a nightclub in Thailand, and it's just popping. It's absolutely popping. This one, only the hands will pop, unfortunately. Also, although having said that, the negative dial on this one is very legible. These ones have positive dials, they're not negative, and again, they're smaller, but they're legible. If you see that, it says received on Sunday. That means it's received the radio time on the W330D. It's received the time from Anthon, from the radio tower. This one does not have radio keeping. You'd have to synchronize it with Bluetooth on your phone, which I will never do because it burns battery, or I'll only do it once a month. But then why don't you just set the time if you're going to do that? But if you're not bothered about that and you keep your Bluetooth on, then all the power to you. Then this watch would be superior. For timekeeping, you could argue, if you didn't live in a multi-band country. If you didn't live in one of the 6 countries worldwide that have radio timekeeping, this one does not have the functionality to sync up with the phone. Whereas it feels as though Casio are going down the Bluetooth route more. And if I was living in Thailand, there is no radio tower for atomic timekeeping, so I would have to use, there's not one that you can hook up with Gshocks, so I'd have to use the phone or just not use it. So for that, this would be superior, having the Bluetooth functionality, you could argue. So I understand why Casio have done it, but at the same time, I prefer multiband because currently I live in the United Kingdom. All the other features are pretty much very similar, with world time, calendar, you know, alarm, stopwatch, all that type of stuff. You get the core functionality of a Gshock with pretty much any Gshock you buy. So I won't go into talking about the modes and stuff because I never use half of them. You get loads of different stuff though with them. You can check it out on the Casio website, the full list of features that you get. One thing about the dial I will say, on the B300, I do actually like the 12 o'clock position there. It does slightly help with timekeeping in terms of like glancing down at the time and realizing what time it is. I would like it if this probably had some numbers on the dial, but obviously they've chose to have it straight just with, you know, flat buttons, which works very well. It's super legible, but with this one, it's not as legible because they've not used the white indices, which is a stupid decision in my opinion. It should be white. You also get one thing you don't get on this one that you do get on this one, but I think there is a mode for it. You do get on the B300, you have an indicator at the bottom which tells you how full the battery is, because they're both solar powered, so they will both charge off fluorescent or non-fluorescent light. You can see it's about halfway currently, but I can easily get that up by leaving it on a windowsill for a day. I wouldn't suggest doing that when it's super hot outside, but in the winter that's fine. Yeah, they both have a somewhat different aesthetic, yet at the same time you can tell they're both G-Shocks. Bezels are very similar, but obviously you have a patterned bezel on the W330D, whereas you don't on the B300. There's no pattern on that, but it does have the G-Shock writing that is more easy to see. But I do prefer a patterned bezel personally, because they show scratches less. Scratches are more difficult to see on this type of bezel, whereas they're much more easier to see on this type. They both have an excellent light. If you click the light, you can clearly see it lights up both the LCD subdial and the main dial. Oh, press wrong button. Yeah. This one also lights up the subdial and the main dial. When you go to a tough solar watch, you'll probably never ever go back to batteries. Batteries suck. Obviously there is a battery in here, but the battery will last years and years, probably between 5 to 10 years, if not longer, if you keep it at, you know, Casio's recommended charge. Case backs, both pretty standard, stainless steel, and it has the model number on. Oh, I should say, yeah, has the model number on, Bluetooth, etc., water resistance, all that. I should say this line, the B300 one, is part of the carbon core shock line, which means that they're both G steel, so they're both part of the G steel category of watches that G-Shock do, but these ones have this carbon fibre implants that give it additional strength, so-called. Not that that really matters to anyone. The more interesting review that I'm going to be doing shortly is going to be the B400, because that is a thinner model that I think a lot more people are going to appeal to, because one criticism of these watches is that they're too bulky. Now the incredible thing is that this watch on my left, and that to this watch, is regarded as a mid-sized G-Shock. Even though they're 50mm diameter and massive, they are regarded as a mid-size. I'll put them on. They do look great. This band, this plastic band, is tough. There's no question about it. It is tough, but it's somewhat comfortable. It's not super uncomfortable. And the reason why they've done it tough is to give it support for the top heaviness. But the watch is still, I mean, the band will remove a lot of the weight of the watch. You know, this is probably only about 85, 90 grams now, whereas it would be over double that. Actually, I could be wrong about that, sorry. It could be more like 100 and something grams. But with a bracelet, it would be like 185. This is probably more like 190, something like that. Because it is a heavy watch, but it's not too heavy. The bracelets are comfortable, and the bracelet for this one I've seen online. I've seen other reviewers, and it does look super comfortable. But the band is okay. It's got a two tang deployment buckle. Yeah, so you know, there's no point me kind of comparing. I've just shown you there's no point me comparing the you know, the bracelet versus the strap, because obviously they give a completely different feel. If you're a bracelet person, you're going to prefer the bracelet, so get the bracelet one. That is the B300D model. If you're not a bracelet guy, you can get either one of these on a strap. You can get it even on a I think it's a Casio, I think they call it the Cordura, which is like a composite. It's like fabric and leather intertwined, I believe. So I think you can actually go swimming with that one, but I would just get it on a rubber band. I think they fit better on rubbers, but obviously I'm a bracelet guy, so against anything with leather on, I would pick rubber. But you know, as a bracelet person, I would always get it on the bracelet. I think they're brilliant, but it does add weight. Whereas without the weight, you could wear it for a longer period of time without it becoming discomforting. Overall, it's a great effort. I would like to see the B300 with multiband. I would like to see both of them thinner by a couple of mil, which is what they've done to the latest one. The latest one is the B400, which is thinner, and I can't wait to review it. I am a big Casio Gshock fan. Gshocks are probably my favourite watches on the planet. I have so many of them, and I've sold so many of them. Before I started this channel, I should have, you know, unfortunately I'd sold a lot of them. But yeah, maybe I'm going to pick some up. And also, I'm a big fan of the Mudmasters, but the Mudmasters are even bigger than this, than the G-Steel range. Oh, and I forgot to mention, sorry, these are mid-sized Gshocks. They do, I think it's a W130 range. W generally stands for multiband, like wave scepter. In the Casio, like, you know, categorization of watches, generally they use that signifier to signify wave scepter, you know, multiband technology. Now, they do a 130, which is even bigger. Now that is too big for me as an all-day comfort watch. It is too big, whereas this is getting much more better. But my feeling is the latest one, which is about 46 mil diameter and it has a smaller lug to lug and is thinner by a couple of mil, that this is the B400 range, that the successor to this one on the right. My feeling is that's going to be the perfect Casio to get, but it does not have multiband, but it has the Bluetooth again and the tough solar and all the other goodness. So yeah, so hopefully you've enjoyed this comparison. They're both decent watches. You can get them in both of them in deals. I mean, don't get me wrong, for what you're getting for the punch, 300 quid is worth it, but you can get them both a lot cheaper than that. You can probably get this one now for about 150 quid, and you can probably get this one now for about closer to 200 quid, maybe a bit more, maybe 250. They both are worth it if you're going to wear them every day as a watch for work or something like that. You know, super durable, super shock resistant, you know, all the functionality. You can go swimming with it because they always have 200-meter water resistance. And you're getting the tough solar, so you never have to worry about batteries in years and years. Okay, it's been Dave. Thanks a lot for checking my review out. Have a great day. See you later.